Thank you for being here for our first grad partnership community of practice. Data tools, I see it dropping in there. Project management, also a good one. That one I probably do need to use more often. Thank you for being here. First one of 2023. We're really excited to have John Boumgarden and Andy Schmitz are with us from OneGoal. We're going to hear from them in a moment. Amanda, if you could move forward the slides for us. Just to remind folks, this is our grad partnership. These are our organizing members, and I am Kelly McMahon from the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, and I have the privilege and honor of being our MC for today's community of practice, but I am doing so on behalf of this great set of organizations who I get to work with in the grad partnership. Amanda, if you could move forward for us. It would be great to know who's here with us, though. So if you could just take a moment and in the chat, share your name, your location, your organization. People can see who's here with us because there'll be an opportunity to hopefully interact with each other. Part of our community is that we want to actually create a community where we create more friendships across spaces and time. So if you could drop in the chat just your name and your location, organization, that'd be great. Our mission with the grad partnership is to partner with communities to use high quality student success systems so that schools are empowered to graduate all students ready for the future. And to do that, we have a definition. I mean, if you want to move forward for us, we have a definition of what we mean by high quality student success systems. So these are a way of organizing schools, school communities to better support the academic progress and well-being of all students. They combine a focus on building strong relationships with real-time actionable data. They're guided by improvement science and continuous improvement, and they're shaped by student-centered mindsets. We want to integrate these four elements together to really think about helping educators address school-wide achievement patterns and school cultural issues, increase school connectedness and sense of belonging among students, and meet individual student needs. The next one is just a picture of that to kind of reduce it for us, but really these interconnections of these parts around actionable data, supportive relationships, and student-centered mindsets all around the improvement systems that we put in place to make sure that we're serving students as best as possible and preparing them for the future. This is what creates our student success systems. Why we need these now, the pandemic has really shown us why we need integrated systems that focus on school connectedness and its importance for academic achievement. We know it really matters when students feel connected to school. It shows us leading indicators like student agency, belonging, connectedness, so it's not too late that we find out that students aren't doing well. Allows us to track the academic gains in real time, allows us to know if interventions indeed are improvements and for whom and under what conditions. It shows students and teachers at schools, not just some individuals, are working to make students succeed. So having this as a system that is in place in our schools really allows people to recognize, hey, we're all in this together. And it focuses on post-secondary preparedness, not just graduation. So really thinking about students' futures. If you could advance, Amanda. And we have this community of practice as a place for all of us to kind of dig in together. So it allows us to connect people who want to implement, improve, and innovate on their student success systems. It enables shared learning. So we're going to get a chance to learn about relevant topics. And today I'm really excited to hear from OneGoal. It generates motivation and inspiration, and we are defined by our mutual engagement. Today, we just have some community agreements for us. It is a we, not me space, and so we share stories and the airtime, so there'll be a chance for us to engage and talk to each other. We accept non-closure. It's likely there's some things that get brought up or talked about or resources that get shared, and we may not necessarily know all of it, but we're still open and continuing to learn together. We have Chatham House rules. So a lot of times some of the best things that we can learn from are our failures or the things that aren't going well. And so we may share those in this space, but we use the ideas and we keep the details of those failures and those trouble spots in the community. We share to learn, and sometimes that's some messy thinking. So you may not, you may have some reactions or things feel resonating, but we learn when we share that thinking with each other, and people get a chance to learn more about what's happening in each of our different spheres, and we make room for joy. Learning is a lot more fun when we learn together and we have fun, we keep coming back together. So those are our community agreements. I have the great honor now of turning this over to hear from John Boumgarden and Andy Schmitz from OneGoal, and they're going to talk about the actionable data and the data tools that they've created, and in some of their work with their Postsecondary Leadership Network. So with that, Amanda, I think we're going to stop sharing and turn it over to them.
Kelly, thank you so much for that introduction, and just very excited to be in community with you all early in 2023, and very much appreciate the opportunity to share some of our work at OneGoal through our Postsecondary Leadership Network, and also learn from you all about how this is similar and different to some of the ways that you engage with data and continuous improvement cycles in your work across the country. So let me tell you a little bit about how we're hoping to spend our time this afternoon. I'm going to spend some time just at the outset orienting everyone to OneGoal's Postsecondary Leadership Network, which is one of the two services that we use across the country in our partnerships with districts and states. And then after we just do a little bit of Postsecondary Leadership Network 101, we're going to make some connections between our work, the work that you all do with student success systems, and our post-secondary readiness rubric. And then we'll get into some of the tools and the processes that our team in Illinois and Kentucky, the two states that we work with most primarily, use in their work with school and district leaders through our persistence dashboards, and also through some of our work with On Track and supporting districts to improve their on track rates. Please do use the chat throughout today to ask questions, to let us know if you need additional clarification on something. We're going to be dropping a number of links, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of take what we're talking about at a high level, be very practical in terms of sharing examples and resources that allow you all to make some connections to your work with schools and districts. So I want to just start a little bit with the why behind our Postsecondary Leadership Network, and then talk about what it is. And so there are two statistics that are up on the screen right now that I imagine resonate with the people in this room, and show the issues and challenges that principals, assistant principals, counselors, directors of secondary, all district leaders have when it comes to knowing if their students are on track or off track relative to post-secondary readiness. And I think the reality is that while we have a lot of data around students' instructional performance and students' social emotional learning, the data field hasn't quite caught up when it comes to whether or not students are on track or off track or somewhere in the middle for college and career readiness. And so this is some of the challenges that we're attempting to solve in our work with districts through our Postsecondary Leadership Network, is making sure that they not only have the data that allows them to know where their students are and where they have gone, but also have the capacity to use that data to then better align their school improvement and district improvement strategies. And so a lot of this data inform the overall architecture of our Postsecondary Leadership Network. And so just really quick to kind of orient everyone around what this is and how our Postsecondary Leadership Network at OneGoal works. We partner with districts. We spend a lot of time at the outset of our partnership with districts doing some diagnostic work and using our post-secondary readiness assessments to help districts think about where their areas of growth are and where their areas of strength are. And then we use that to make sure that we're co-creating a tailored plan to their context. And so what we do in one district looks different to what we do in another district. And in one district in downstate Illinois, we might be working on strengthening your post-secondary leadership team, while in another district in Kentucky, we might be working on building their career pathways. We know that our work is best when it is adaptive to the local context. And so we spend a lot of the time with our district in the first several months of partnership, getting to know them, and again, co-creating those priorities together. And then after that, participating districts in our network experience two tracks of support. One is one-on-one coaching and guidance from John and other members of our coaching team, where they're working through implementation plans, addressing roadblocks that get in the way, and helping post-secondary strategy become a reality. And we also use communities of learning. And so we bring together our district partners 6 times a year in cross-district communities of practice so that they can learn from each other in role-like groups. Like a lot of work in education, post-secondary readiness work is siloed. It often lives with one counselor or one overworked AP. And so we see our post-secondary leadership network as a way to elevate those voices and allow people and leaders to connect about the challenges of counseling work in one community and counseling work in another community. And then the last point I'll make on this slide is we've really tried to think about, if you can go back for just 1 second, John, the system level changes and improvements that are most important relative to post-secondary readiness. You'll see this in just a minute as embedded into our post-secondary readiness rubric. The last point I'll make, and then I'll pass it over to John to make some connections between our work and our logic model and the GRAD partnership framework. It's just to show you where we work with our Postsecondary Leadership Network. So our organization has 6 regions throughout the country. Our Postsecondary Leadership Network, which is new for our organization and just started about 2 years ago, is right now grounded in Illinois and Kentucky. And so we started this work with our Illinois Districts Network 1 about 1.5 years ago, and you can see those on your screen. We have another new cohort of Illinois districts that launched this past August, and then we also had the opportunity to work with Kentucky and their Council on Post-Secondary Education to launch an inaugural cohort in Kentucky. And the one takeaway that I hope you glean from this is we really are working with a diverse set of districts, small districts, medium-sized districts, big districts, rural districts, northern Illinois districts, southern Illinois districts, and that has been very informative to us in terms of understanding how the post-secondary landscape is both similar and different across communities, depending on their geography and their previous experiences with this. And so with that, I'll pass it off to John.
Thanks, Andy. One of the things that I just want to start and ground us with is when we began this work, we actually partnered with AIR to do a logic model. And so this is a very small fraction of the logic model that you see on the screen. And why you might see some similar short-term and medium-term outcomes, I think at the long-term level, we're really trying to move student level outcomes, specifically with some data measuring points that you're probably familiar with, right? Like post-secondary access leading indicators, and trying to close that gap in the post-secondary enrollment and kind of persistence trends. And so AIR has been a great partner for us in thinking through how do we map this, how do we start to measure this and work towards consistently meeting those long-term outcomes with our partners. And so they've been really, really influential in that kind of early process with us to kind of have a tester model, kind of force us to think through some of our logic and our thinking and really drill down what we want to move with our systems level leaders on the back end. I think a great opportunity for us here is to really guide ourselves in the second and the third point of the student success system. So when Kelly approached us is kind of bring us on to kind of share some of our work, we really wanted to highlight the fact that we're using a lot of kind of real-time actionable data to kind of start to move student success forward, and also kind of using the active principles of improvement science. And so we feel like a lot of the work that we're going to kind of highlight today should hopefully be grounded in those areas. And kind of push our thinking, please, in the chat or just with questions of, does this feel right? Does this actually feel like we're moving the work forward? We think we have kind of a lot of really good successes that we're excited to share, but really eager to hear from you all in this community how we can kind of keep on improving in the work. As Andy mentioned, when we begin a partnership with the district, we start with a rubric assessment. So we actually have the district, we come on, we do kind of an internal assessment, and we do our assessment with the district based on the following rubric. Usually everyone's heads kind of turn sideways as you start to look at the angles of our rubric here, but we're going to ground today in kind of rubric point 2, which is that post-secondary data systems and structures. We think this is one of the core areas that systems need to get right and actually to order to move forward kind of system level efforts, right? So that if we're going to actually move a lot of students at a high volume and a high capacity, we really have to have strong data systems and structures. And so on the next slide, you're going to see is actually that we have a much more detailed view of what that rubric looks like. And so I'll let you just kind of, as I talk through some of the points here, you'll see a list of indicators below each, beginning, practicing, and persisting column. And when we do this work, we ask districts to self-assess with a variety of stakeholders, what does your district practices look like? And we really want to have a pretty big 360 view. So when we do these rubric assessment processes, we bring in teachers, we bring in counselors, we try to bring in district representatives, because a lot of times, if you're only looking at the system from kind of your own point of view, your perspective, you're going to miss actually the entirety and the totality of it. And so this kind of robust 360 view allows leaders to kind of step back to say, really where are we at in our practice? Because when we set our goals, we ask leaders to kind of pick one of these focus areas. A lot of times our districts will pick this post-secondary data systems and structures, and then we can kind of start to vision set forward of how do we want to move from beginning to practicing or practicing to persisting. And we use some fun actionable data and tools to actually help drive that process. Just to kind of note, when we say coaching in our relationships too, Coaching can be anyone from district level individuals such as superintendents, assistant superintendents, directors of college and career and readiness. But we often have partners in our coaching who are building leaders, counselors. And so it really is kind of this robust group of stakeholders. Because again, we think if we're just kind of isolating it like historically has been done, we're going to miss some of that larger viewpoint. The next little bit we're going to talk about is going to be our persistence dashboard, which I think a lot of our districts have said is kind of one of our big game changers of actually taking data and then making it visually able to digest in kind of really fast ways. And so we're going to, at some point, I'm going to stop the Zoom, or sorry, I'm going to stop the deck. We're going to kind of navigate some of the dashboard views to show you what it looks like. Moment. But we have made a persistence dashboard, Andy, and we have an amazing data analyst on our team, Sam Koenig, who has built this really robust data using NSC data and giving districts the opportunity to really start to dial into what are both their persistence and enrollment efforts and disaggregating by a number of factors. So you see the purpose and how we use it on the left side. I'm going to kind of quickly stop the share for 1 second and kind of just give you a visual navigation of that.
And John, I'll just, as you're doing that, just jump in with 1 or 2 points here. I think one of the things that we realized in the beginning parts of this work is that some states make data on districts' alumni publicly available, some don't, and often the amount of that information varies greatly state by state. And so sometimes it's just enrollment data, but not persistence data. Sometimes it's enrollment data, but not distinct by student subgroup. All states, with the exception of maybe one, have a partnership with the National Student Clearinghouse, and so have data on their alumni. And so I think what we've been trying to do is make sure that we get that data into the hands of practitioners who may or may not have access to that via their kind of state report cards and other places. And so that was the real impetus behind the dashboards that John is about to kind of showcase.
Thanks, Andy. And if you could just give me a thumbs up to make sure that this is actually changing. We see some visuals. Okay, great. So just to kind of, again, walk you through the orientation, up here is actually all of our specific districts that we work with. And so each district gets their own kind of dashboard view that we kind of do some of this data process with. This is actually the entirety of all our districts across the state of Illinois. So just to make sure that we're keeping everyone's data confidential, we're kind of doing this external larger view. But on the left, you see some different subgroups that you can start to disaggregate by. So we have gender, we have SES, ELL, and then you have kind of the dimension in which you want to potentially disaggregate that data. So if you want to look at persistence, which is, again, probably pretty unique in this space, we're able to look at the graduation year from students in 2019, from all of our districts, and we'll say potentially the subgroup of gender. We can look at who is persisting in the post-secondary 2 and 4 year space and who is not persisting, and really give districts the opportunity to start to kind of dig in with the tools that they want to have and the knowledge to actually start to ask themselves, well, we know we place kids in XYZ school, but what's actually happening below that level on why they may or may not be persisting? Those are the types of conversations that we think are really important from an alumni facing standpoint, that district leaders should be asking themselves and engaging with their communities and stakeholders to say, well, you know, we're placing kids at a high level, but they're actually not persisting. So why is that the case? As of this point, we have 3 years, so 2018, 2019, and 2020, with NSC data that is kind of customized for this Illinois portal. And we found it just to be a really powerful tool. In just a moment, we're going to have the chance to kind of go into some discussion points, and we've put some screenshots in a Jamboard for you to actually engage with. But I just want to kind of give you a sense and feel of what that tool looks like, which again has been a really powerful, I think, medium for our partners. We use this tool a lot in our cross-district communities of practice. And so when we bring together partners, they come together, we have put, again, some protocols on the bottom and the left to really look at some of those equity trends, right? So what's happening with alums, what's happening with your current students. You start to see some of the tools and the facilitation that we actually have districts go through to really start to ask themselves. And they get to do this again in a place of practitioners who are doing similar types of discourse and conversation, but also potentially in very kind of just different geographic contexts, right? So sometimes it's in Southern Illinois, sometimes Northern Illinois, but it's been really powerful, rich conversations that we've seen thus far. In just a moment, I'm going to get you into breakout rooms so you can actually kind of engage with some of the stuff. We have put 4 questions up on for you all to discuss. We've also put a Jamboard link, which will give you the chance to look at those screenshots. On the Jamboard, the first page, you will see kind of 4 snapshots. So again, it gives you some of the, just like the overfacing with the persistence, with the graduation years, you'll see some of those visuals pop up. And then we've also overlaid those conversations on the second slide of the Jamboard. So hopefully you have the tools to kind of engage in some rich conversation with your peers. And we look forward to having your thoughts and conversations kind of shared in the back end as we come back. We'll do a second breakout room after Andy presents in a little bit. So please make sure you stay tuned because he's got more good stuff ahead that we'd love to hear your thoughts on. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you had a great breakout room conversation. I'm going to drop the question that we would love to just have a quick share out. So as you're coming back in, the last question that was there was, how is the way our partners have engaged and analyzed their data similar or different to how you've analyzed data that informs student success systems? So if you either want to drop something in the chat or if you want to come off mute, if you're able to do that, I'm not sure what everyone's permissions are. Feel free to, but hopefully that there are some good insights in that last question that we'd love to highlight.
We had like a, if we had the power to do anything we wanted idea to connect sort of, it would be interesting if there would be some way to track early like attendance, behavior, and course performance flags or indicators that we're tracking in high school, and then compare them to like, if they flagged in this way in high school and this is where they are now in their post-secondary career. I think that would be like a godsend for us. I mean, that would be a lot. I don't know how you do that, but it would be sort of, we felt like that would be like the through line. Then we could also be learning and using a lot of that information to continually improve the high school experience.
So like linking robust early warning indicator systems to long-term persistence trends is what I'm hearing. Great, thank you for sharing, appreciate that. Any other partners that want to speak out or groups that want to speak out?
I think something that, so I'm from SF Unified and I work with the high schools, and I noticed, and we also work with City College as well, and there's a tendency of like the blame game, like who failed our students, who didn't complete college, and our high schools will point to like, well, that's that City College, they don't have the resources, and then the colleges point to us like, well, you didn't prepare our kids to come to us. So I feel like it'll be great to like, hear out here or future conversations, how to navigate those discussions towards like what is our locus of control in the high schools and then in the college, and how can we move the needle versus like just pointing to someone else that didn't do well. So
yeah, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. If you still have other insights, feel free to drop them in the chat. I want to make sure that Andy gets to do the second part of the discussion. So I'm going to pass it back to him, and then Andy, you let me know when we're ready to share out, to share the screen.
Yeah, you can go ahead and share, but I'll just affirm, I think, what both of the people who just spoke said, and we experience this a lot, which is great, but what are the data sources that I can then look at for my current students that let me know whether they're on track for high quality enrollment and persistence. And as we might get to at the end, we often kind of get into some conversations about where is the locus of control, and sometimes that is a barrier to robust data analysis. Is when you show this data to counselors, they might want to also have a conversation about what responsibility is on them versus the district leadership versus the principal versus the community college partner, and so those are all dynamics that we try and sift through. We're going to get into talking a little bit about our coaching plans in just a second, but I just want to make the link between what we're about to talk about and what we were talking about. We spend time talking with our partners about their alumni trends through our persistence dashboard and the National Student Clearinghouse tracker. And then we use that data to create a coaching plan with them. In that coaching plan, what we also do is have them pick from 1 or 2 metrics that we call post-secondary readiness leading indicator to say, here are the 1 or 2 metrics that we think predicts that enrollment and persistence and what we want to focus on during the partnership. And so that's what John is showing right now, is this log that we actually have our team complete, but we also do this real time with our partners. And the list, excuse me, on here is very long. And so as we've kind of mined the field about the metrics associated with post-secondary enrollment and persistence, we have found that different communities place emphasis on different metrics. For some, it's the number of students who've completed at least 1 application. For others, it's the number of students completing a work-based learning experience. Maybe it's an advanced coursework enrollment. Maybe it's something like on track. And I think we've learned that we want to be expansive in those definitions and expansive in what partners want to prioritize, rather than saying, here's the 1 metric we think you should focus on. It should be FAFSA, because in reality, that might work for one district in one part of Illinois, but it doesn't work for another district in another part of Illinois. So just to kind of quickly share with you the artifacts and arc of our work with districts and make a link to On Track and student success systems. After we do the readiness assessment, we do the coaching plan with our partners, and we're going to drop some links in the chat that show you some example coaching plans that we've completed with partners. And that coaching plan is not just a standalone conversation. We hope it's not a check the box conversation, but rather is representative of authentic conversation between us and our partners about what do they want to prioritize in the post-secondary readiness space? What did they learn from their rubric assessment? What did they learn from their data analysis? And what are the 1 to 2 data metrics that they think they can and should move in the next couple of years? And so we spend several meetings going through this with them. Our coaches of our new partners are in the middle of this right now. It takes time to kind of get through this, but we think that gives us the clarity and the partners the clarity they need to be really narrowly focused throughout the length of the partnership. And so just to voice over the links that are in the chat, there are 2 coaching plan examples, one from Round Link and one from Proviso. Just ask that you kind of don't share those from beyond this space, since they are our actual coaching plans from our partners. And then what you should see in the Round Lake plan, as well as I think the Proviso plan, is both those districts and their coaches prioritize focusing on freshmen on track as a way to say, is this going to actually tell us if we're going to get to high quality enrollment and persistence? And so you can see then some example artifacts that came out of the coaching plan from Round Lake, where our team and the Round Lake leadership team collaborated to think about how do we improve freshmen on track from a systemic way. And so you should see that in the couple of examples there. So we're going to have you guys get back into breakout rooms for a little bit. And the questions that we just want you to kind of consider as you're going into those breakout rooms and looking at those artifacts is, how kind of this approach to supporting districts and schools parallels your work on early warning or other on-track indicators? What are some of the barriers that you found that leaders encounters when trying to institutionalize and codify early warning systems and the analysis of that data? And then I know we'll also come back to this at the end, but just really thinking about what are you seeing in the artifacts that is an idea that you might be able to take back to your own community.
All right, I think we have everyone back now. Thank you. Welcome back, friends. Turn it over to you, Andy.
All right. So I know that was just some scratching the surface on some of the work that our district partners are doing around On Track and how they think about the strategies related to implementing early warning systems, doing analysis of that data, and continuously improving. We just wanted to end on our end with some of the lessons learned and challenges related to our work within the Postsecondary Leadership Network and some of the data that we leverage with our districts. And so just wanted to voice over the bullet points that you see on your screen really quickly. One is that data skepticism is real. I'm sure you all encounter this in your work. Many district leaders and school leaders in the K-12 space have not frequently seen data on their alumni. And with that comes some skepticism about where is this data coming from? I thought we had more kids in this particular college pathway. And so that's something that we try and mitigate through some of the strategies that we use in our cross-district communities of practice so they can fully engage with data. Thing that I think John might have touched on at the beginning is there is a time delay on the NSC data. And so what you saw was not 2022 data from the class of 2022, but older, more historical data. And a lot of that has to do with the frequency with which states report their graduating data to NSC, and when the NSC gives that data back to states. And so we don't have the opportunity yet to have districts analyze their most recent classes enrollment data. And that leads to some challenges about how relevant this data is to continuous improvement efforts. And then the third bullet on here is, I think, something that we felt particularly acutely as we've expanded the diversity of districts that we're working with. The NSC data and a lot of the data in the K-12 space around post-secondary readiness is somewhat myopic in that it just focuses on college as the post-graduation pathway, and it doesn't capture students who go into the military, into a trade school, or the workforce. And we want to be able to help districts think about those different post-graduation trajectories. And right now, the data systems haven't caught up to that. And so that's, I think, another challenge that we've encountered. And then the last one that I'll end with is, if you ask a district leader or a school leader, what data did you look at most frequently? I would guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they probably say student achievement data or attendance data. And that's the reality that we're kind of facing, is trying to have the time to say, hey, can you also look at this other data around where your alumni have gone, or how many of them have submitted an application about where they want to go post-graduation? And so just having the capacity to look at and analyze post-secondary data with the same level of intentionality as I think many district and school leaders do so with attendance data, SEL data, or student achievement data. So I'll just say thank you so much for allowing us to present and talk today. Again, I hope we get to see many of you in other spaces, and always eager to hear feedback and input on our work and how this connects to your work. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Kelly.
Thank you, Andy. I just want to take a moment to thank John and Andy for sharing so much of your rich work. I appreciate it. And while much of it has lived in the post-secondary space, I think there's a lot of analogs and or connections too between the student success systems, and thinking about how do we create the right data tools that allow people to have the kind of conversations that we want them to be having. How do we create the relationships and the support around coaching and the right scaffolds to do that? So thank you so much for giving us, some really good models and examples to learn from as you're really thinking about how do we make this regular practice, this kind of learning from our work, attending to it, being able to be adaptive so that we can serve more students and make sure that we have students graduating future ready, whether that's college, whether that's going into the career. So thinking about how do we create the right infrastructure to support that. So thank you so much. Our next community of practice, I just want to look forward to that, is going to be February 15th. We're going to have Camille Farrington joining us. Please come back and join us. That should be an interesting one. I believe the topic is going to be thinking about how do we work with educator mindsets, but stay tuned, look for the advertisement around that one. And speaking of tools and things to support student success systems, GRAD Partnership is currently in the process of developing a self-reflection tool that schools or school teams could be able to use, or districts if they're working on use that's really meant for schools, but if you wanted to try it, and we're hoping for people to learn with us. So if you're interested in trying out this tool, this draft of it, and being able to pilot with us, we welcome learning with you about how the experience goes, so that we can also start to follow along in John and Andy's way of thinking about what are the right tools and scaffolds and supports to move this work forward as we're trying to integrate student success systems, high quality student success systems. And then lastly, we really want to learn, how's this going for you? How is our community going? We would love your input. So if you could take just 2 minutes, not even, I think it's 1 minute, to answer a couple quick questions and give us some feedback on our community of practice. We would love to get your input on how it's going for you. So if you could just grab the link that Amanda has dropped in the chat. And finally, I just want to thank Amanda so much for all the coordinating behind the scenes and making this also seamless. I really appreciate you being here and making Zoom so easy. And then thank all of you for being here early in the year. Thank you for spending part of your Wednesday with us, and we look forward to continuing to learn with you. So thank you all. Appreciate it.